Good morning. It's 10 o'clock and we're glad to see everyone here. We're calling this meeting, this special called meeting, budget workshop meeting, to order. I'll ask everyone if you would please stand. The agenda says a silent prayer, but if you'll indulge me, we're going to have a spoken prayer followed by our pledge. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. We thank you, Father, for every day that you give us, the blessing of being able to come together to work on behalf of all of the citizens of Natchez for the betterment of Natchez. Father, today is an important meeting as we consider the needs of our city and our financial resources and looking to you, the provider of all. Father, we thank you for providing the funds needed to run our city and to meet our needs, because truly we look to you, the supply. Father, we thank you also for every person on this board. We ask your blessings upon them, their families. Father, we lift up those who are hurting. And Father, we do lift up the family of several who we have lost over the course of this weekend. Even employees of the city, of the county, and also our beloved friend Ron Miller. So, Father, just be with those families. And now, Father, we commit our meeting to you. Let everything we do, let everything we consider be pleasing in your sight. In your precious name, amen. Please join me now in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated, and we'll allow the clerk to administer the roll call.
Alderwoman Hall.
Morning.
Here. Alderman Frazier.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith.
Here.
Alderwoman Irving.
Here.
Alderman Davis.
Here.
Alderman Dillard.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, all present in the county.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I do want to just take a moment before we continue with our agenda. As I said during the prayer, we have lost several individuals who are very important to our community over the past few days. And we ask for prayers for all of these family members, an employee of public transit, an employee of the county, and several others. Heavy on my heart, though, this morning is the loss of Ron Miller. And I can truly say that I have rarely met a gentleman like Ron Miller. When I first started weekending every weekend in Natchez back in late 2015, Ron and Mimi Miller became like surrogate parents to me. In fact, I was a guest in their home every weekend for months. And I gained a lot of weight eating those blueberry pancakes. And I doubt that I'll ever have blueberry pancakes that good ever again. I enjoyed late night conversations about history, about Natchez, about so many things with both Ron and me. Ron, I think, single-handedly brought about a new appreciation for historic preservation in Natchez that had never truly existed before. And as the first executive director at the Natchez Historic Foundation, he truly charted a course that we all now follow. His wife, Mimi Miller, succeeded him in that office, and together they have accomplished so much. I don't think Natchez would be Natchez were it not for Ron and Mimi Miller. When we look around, so many buildings that could have gone the other way are standing beautiful and now have stood the test of time, all because of the work of Ron Miller. And so we've already had a prayer this morning, but I would like to ask at this time for a moment of silence in honor of this great man. Amen. Thank you. Well, the first item, permission to submit Mississippi Municipal and County Water Infrastructure, MCWI, application for Morgantown Road, including approval of joint city and county resolution. I'm going to recognize Mr. Johnston, provide more information, and then we will entertain a motion from the board. Good morning.
My name is Rick Burgess. I did email board members and the mayor and others last weekend, and then delayed it from Morgantown Road reconstruction, the East 2020 to 60 housing county water infrastructure grant program. After requesting a motion to serve as applicant to prepare the application for the grant consideration the EQ for phase 2 drainage improvements to Morgantown Road reconstruction. The notice of application relies on available ARPA money and requires applicants to utilize their ARPA money as matched, the match part being 1 million. The estimated cost of this phase of the project is $1.7 million, with a ceiling applied for $850 in NCWI ARPA money. Adams County is contributing $502,000 to their ARPA money, and the city of Natchez being asked to commit $300,000 in their ARPA fund match.
Alderman Davis, I will recognize. Second. The motion has been made by Alderman Davis, seconded by Alderwoman Hall. Discussion on the motion.
Yes,
Yes, Alderman Frazier.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This Morgantown road reconstruction project here. Have the county voted on this yet? Have they taken action on this yet?
They are to be discussing this and looking at this morning at the 9 o'clock meeting. I have spoken to Mr. Gray or the attorney this morning.
Okay, let me say this. I understand this about more. I'm not trying to knock this project. I think this project is long overdue and it's well deserved. Those people, they deserve the best out there in their community. But I think that the county, it's a county project, and I think that they should take the lead on it. And they haven't voted on it yet. I don't know why we are voting on it and the county ain't took it up yet. They hadn't voted on it.
All I can say is the Fraser is, I mean, it's on your agenda. I also allow you to speak this morning, this evening. My assumption is, I mean, that they are addressing it, and if anything changes the contrary, I'm sure Callaway will be the first to hear, to see Mr. Flo has been communicating in regards to this.
They are addressing it, or they're gonna vote on it today. Which one they're gonna do?
Supposed to be voting on it today. But again, I haven't spoken to Mr. Gray or Mr. Flo since our 3 o'clock meeting Thursday. He did send a detailed email Friday.
I'm saying this I'm doing this for a reason because you know, it's a lot of hearsay going around that the city was the one holding it up, and I'm like, well, no, it's a county project. I mean, we're not on board. We're gonna be on board with, but I think that the city project, I mean, the county project, that they should take the lead vote on first.
I think there are some reasons that they cannot, which I don't know if I can speak up or not. But they have asked the county to assist in this effort, and it's my assumption that the county is appropriate, the county needs to do that.
Okay. Further discussion, Alderman Dillard.
Now, you know, reading in this talks about drainage improvement. Is this different than the road service improvement?
I have not spoken at length with their consulting engineer. It's my understanding that there are drainage improvements that are included in the total scope of work. So we're seeking funding for involve drainage improvements.
Now, I mean, at least earlier, I was under the impression the city was being asked to contribute $700,000 towards the Morgantown Road improvement. My question again, is this different than that?
It is the same project. It has been broken down into 2 phases. What I'm bringing to the board this morning is phase 2, the MCWI portion. That's the acronym I'm using, for the DEQ program. That phase in total is $1.7 million. We're applying for the 850, 850 being split on a 60-40 basis.
So can you characterize what phase 1 is?
Phase 1, as far as detailed scope of work, no, sir, but phase 1 involves the earmark of $3 million, of which 20% is matched of $600,000. I'm not prepared to go into detail about that today, but can answer questions that may come at next Tuesday's board meeting.
Is the city being, what percentage is the city being asked to contribute towards that $600,000
Yes,
match?
sir.
Do you know what that split is?
It's also a 60-40. Total match is $600,000 on a 60-40 basis.
So we're being asked to do phase 1 at a match on the $600,000 and then being asked to match on the phase 2, which is $340,000. Would that be correct?
Alderwoman Smith.
Just real quickly, that according to the county attorney, it did pass.
Okay, and then I have a call.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
But did you get that in the text or what? Or you just got it? She just said pass. I don't know if you said what.
Right.
Thank you. I'm sorry. One at a time. I have to recognize Alderwoman Irving, your hand is raised.
Yes, sir. I just want to ask, I had been in further discussion. I know you're asking for 60.
I need order. I'm sorry. The rules of the board, one at a time, you must be recognized by the mayor. Alderwoman Irving, please continue.
Thank you. And there was a 70-25 split.
I haven't heard of that split.
We were when we had our discussion in that meeting, that was
The
possible.
first meeting, it was always, total length of the road is 9 miles. Of that, 40% of it is in the county, in the city, 60% in the city. That
County.
was used at that time. In addition, there was discussion regarding the earmark. The majority of USDOT and MDOT funds are always on a 20 basis. Those percentages that I recall. Not a 75 plate on that.
It had because we applied for the grant,
Yes, ma'am,
and that was the reason
I'm
why,
here today.
the percentage.
That's why I'm here today. It may have slightly changed, but I honestly don't recall those percentages.
Yeah, I have that information and the dollar amount as well, because there was a discussion. And actually, our city clerk had brought that conversation to the meeting at that point in time. That's what we should be asking for. Again, I'm not against the project. I know it needs to be done. Every street in the city of Natchez matter. With the construction, the pavement, the improvements of it, I'm all for that. But I was not going to vote today if we had not, because I heard that same information.
My recollection and the following meeting this past Thursday was on a 60-40 split.
Alderman Dillard, you're recognized.
Again, 60-40, 60 county, 40.
That's correct, 60 county, 46.
Okay, and in the last paragraph, there's a reference to $250,000 for engineering. Is
Sir, that is not to exceed. That's looking into the solicit proposal for engineering services, and we're utilizing our recently approved ARPA procurement policies. And so their engineering numbers will not exceed the 50.
what is the estimated engineering?
With it being a $1.7 million phase, I say the more than 12, 13, but I haven't taken, 10 to paper, but it will not exceed that amount because, dollars are not until we evaluate the fact we will negotiate with the engineer and try and come to an agreement.
My point being is that it's not to exceed, but engineers have a habit of running right up to that not to exceed number at $250,000. Is the $250,000 being asked of by the city included in these other matches, or is this in addition to?
It's an inclusive, but
So if I took phase 1, 340,000, phase 2, 120,000, and then add, this is coming out, that's roughly that $700,000 number we were looking at.
we had discussed 4.7 is the total project budget, and the 250 is included in here. Should it be 250, again, have not discussed fees with the engineering firm. And the board has not given the authority yet to solicit engineering proposals. That is something that the board decides.
But if I take away from this, the city's asked matching contributions in this effort will not exceed $750,000. Will not exceed.
That is correct. It should be,
My question, Mr. Mayor, also to the clerk, does this show up in our budgets at this time?
There's some minor changes, but yes, it's in there. 'Cause
Where
these
would I
were
find
printed
it?
prior to that meeting on Thursday.
Do you have a fund number or somewhere where I would find it in this budget?
So you will see it in the 347 fund, which begins on page 18. So there will be an increase for the county's ARPA allotment. And then I believe we had it budgeted for a total of 540 for the city's portion. That will go to 580. So again, there's some minor changes, but it is laid out within the budget.
Mr. Mayor, to Alderwoman or Alderman Frazier's comment, I do, and I think we are. What is good for the county is also good for the city, but there's also a vice versa that, and I certainly think that the city has a lot to be gained by this. However, I hope that we can realize that reciprocity in projects going forward, whether it be the Silver Street raising of the Silver Street, or it be when we did the cemetery road. If we are going to be in a reciprocity and working together in there, at some point that road has to run both ways, where we can realize contributions and efforts on the county's part to the betterment of the city, which I've said many times before. The city of Natchez is inside the county of Adams. Morgantown Road, there's no square foot of Morgantown Road that's not in the county of Adams. We are proceeding with our projects, and I think they're, Mr. Mayor, due to receive more ARPA funds than the city is. Am I correct?
You are.
I haven't asked them. I mean, they've already received half of theirs. I don't know what that amount is. They have not received it 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Callaway, you're recognized.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Slover sent over the joint resolution, which is discussed in the agenda. There were some discrepancies in there that need to be cleaned up because it was hurriedly put together to meet a deadline, because if we don't make this first deadline, then it's 6 months before we can. But so I asked Ms. Pam to put that on the agenda for this afternoon. As soon as I get those changes back, I know this is rushed, but this is how law goes sometimes. I will get those in your hands to look at. And Mr. Johnson, I'm correct. I think phase 1 and phase 2, our total contribution is going to be not to exceed $580,000. Correct.
Right, but I mean, I was going with the higher figures. I mean, the more current figures, are that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Callaway. In light of what you just shared, should we delay action on this motion until that resolution is presented this evening?
No, I think for the right to apply for the infrastructure grant,
To serve
the
as
board can
applicant.
go ahead and vote. But
Okay.
as far as the joint resolution with the county, we need to take that up this evening.
Okay, the motion is to serve as applicant for this process. And if we don't apply now, as you just heard, there's a 6-month delay. We have the funds. It is something we have long intended to do. In fact, this is why we aggressively pursued the federal funds that we were successful in getting, $2.4 million, to follow through with this project. However, obviously more funds have been required, and we have found a very good strategy for getting those funds and reducing the amount that the city will pay. And so I think we have a good strategy, and I'd like to call for the question.
Call.
Okay, the question's been called. We'll move to a vote. Alderwoman Hall.
Aye.
Alderman Frazier.
Nay.
Alderwoman Smith.
Aye.
Alderwoman Irving.
Aye.
Alderman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Dillard.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We're excited to be working with the county in getting this resolved. The next item, Mr. Johnson. Yeah. Alderman Irving?
I just want to say, I hope we have that information in our hand this afternoon. So we
Exactly.
can see their vote, and not coming as we are now, knowing that the vote hadn't taken place prior to this meeting. I hope we get that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, the vote, Mr. Johnson still.
Mr. Johnson, next item.
After the requesting motion, plans, $15,000 utilizing ARPA funds, they require of the NBEQ program.
What is the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Alderman Davis has made the motion.
Second.
Alderwoman Hall has seconded. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Frazier.
This the money that going towards the Morgantown Road, correct? This is just the funds that the city putting up.
Yes, but this is the next one, for this phase of the project.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Dillon.
I thought the preceding discussion had made point that we could approve the serve as an applicant. And we haven't seen the information from the county. Would it not be wiser to see if they vote on it before we're committing to the funds? I think that's what the attorney was alluding to as to how these funds are being, shared, these costs are being shared.
I would like to ask Alderman Davis to please add to this motion the words,
Pending approval.
provided the county agrees to the resolution, providing, for this application.
I'll make a motion to add, provided, county agrees to the resolution.
All right. And Alderwoman Hall, do you accept that as an amendment to
Yes,
the
sir.
motion? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
So the motion has been amended.
before you make-
Alderman Frazier, you're recognized.
let him please stipulate the amount in the motion.
It was in his
Yeah, but
original
he-
motion.
Yeah, but he made the motion, so he.
It was in his
It's in
original
here.
motion,
Yes.
340,000. Okay, I'll call for the question.
Call.
Question's been called. We'll proceed to a vote. Alderwoman Hall,
Aye.
Alderman Frazier, Alderwoman Smith,
Aye.
Alderwoman Irving,
Aye.
Alderman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Dillard.
All right.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Next item, after requesting a motion to solicit proposals for construction engineering and inspection, services for the 2022 NBEQ NCWI grant program utilizing ARPA money, which they locally call state and local citizen recovery fund, lawful procurement of professional services, business services, contract for public construction inspector, which is for contract money $50,000. And this committee will be appointed by the mayor to review proposals and make a recommendation to the full board.
What is
So
the
moved.
pleasure? Alderman Davis has made the motion,
Second.
seconded by Alderwoman Hall. Discussion on the motion.
Again, Mr. Mayor, this would be pending the actions of the county and the approval or review and comments of the attorney. I think would be in order. Again, if they're not going to proceed with it, we're not going to proceed with it. I don't want a motion on the floor and something approved if in fact they're not going to be a participant in this process.
And,
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, Alderwoman Hall.
Yes, we have a responsibility to the citizens of this community to proceed with this project. We have discussed it. Our lobbyists have worked hard to procure this money. You have worked hard in Washington to get this money for us and for the county to go forward with this project. And we don't need to be redundant discussing the very first paragraph that we've already voted on and approved. And this is a continuation of that. Let's not be redundant and move forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, in that case, I'm going to vote no on this because my point is not to be redundant, but it is not to approve the city where it is the only participant in this until there's action taken by the county and approved by the attorney. You're approving committing funding these without even the agreement being approved. You're ahead of
Dillard,
yourself. Thank
If
you.
you would, let me recognize Alderman Davis. I think he was going to provide a similar amendment that he did to the other one, pending approval by the
okay.
county.
all right.
Is that correct, Alderman Davis?
Yes, I want to make a motion by the amendment, pending the approval of the county.
All right.
Okay.
Alderwoman Hall has agreed to continue her second of that amended motion. Alderman Frazier.
Mr. Mayor, let me just say this. We are, to the public and to the press, we are not against this project. We're just simply stating that we think that if it's a county project, that they should have everything together before they even bring, they should vote on this and all this refund. We're not trying to block this or anything, but it's just the way it's going down, and we haven't heard anything from the county. And we're putting up money. We're putting up money. We don't know if the county gonna put up money first yet. So that's just the way I feel too. I just can't,
Thank you. Thank you. I'll call for the question.
Call.
The question's been called.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. Alderwoman Hall.
Aye.
Alderman Frazier. Alderwoman Smith.
Aye.
Alderwoman Irving.
Nay.
Alderman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Dillard.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Mr. Johnston, I also want to make a comment while you're here. I want to thank you for all of your work on this, but not just this, so many other things. If anyone had a chance to shadow you during the day and to see what you do, they would probably go crazy. And to see what you have accomplished for our city, and I thank you for that. And I also want to have a thank you to everyone. This is just a good opportunity to do it. I don't think it has to be on the agenda to say thank you, does it? We had a great event Tuesday, and it was because of a team. And I want to thank everyone for supporting the beautification of that area, the work that was done literally to the very last minute to make sure that we had a really great and beautiful occasion last Tuesday. And Mr. Johnston, you really helped lead that effort. And along with Mr. Dollar, Mr. Rudder, and Mr. Butch Johnson, who at the very last minute came through with so many improvements to that area of Silver Street. It just has to also be noted that Dustin Hinkle went above and beyond, along with his team, Vidal Blankenstein, and also others.
Nefa Hardy worked hard.
And Nefa Hardy and Richard Burke, and my goodness, Chief Daughtry and Chief Arrington, the list goes on and on. It truly takes a team. And, but I just had to say this while you were here. Thank you. All right, we'll now move to discussion of fiscal year 2023 City of Natchez budget. I'm going to recognize at this time our city clerk, and I want to just say we are so grateful to her. Our city clerk, Megan McKenzie, has stepped in at a time when we were going through a transition. There have been some challenges, but she delivered to our auditors on time everything they needed to get the audit done for the fiscal year that was just concluded, I guess, last September. We're about to approve that audit any day now. So proud of the work you've done there. In addition to that, you have brought our record keeping to a new level. You and your partner there, and I'm speaking about you, Ms. Denise, and your team at City Hall. Everything is being done by the book. The transfer of funds, no longer are they done without full notification and approval by this board. And then you very early led the effort in meeting with department directors to establish what their needs were. And at a time when so many cities are struggling, and it would be said that this would be a hard time for Natchez, you've actually managed to show us a way to meet our obligations, to also meet some very significant goals, all without an increase in taxes, and all within a balanced budget. And so we're about to discuss it, but I've just got to say kudos to you. Madam
certainly
Clerk, you're,
not done it all alone down there on that end hall. Incredible team who has been right there with me, working just as hard, if not harder, making sure it's all happening.
I know you do. And I also want to say just some highlights to the budget before we get into the discussion. I'm excited to say that we have been able to manage funds in a way where the raises we have given to our employees during this COVID and post-COVID time are not only in the budget's balanced, but they're in a budget in a way where going forward, those raises are sustainable. In addition to that, it's very important to me, we won't get into the nuts and bolts of this. We have some decisions to make between now and the end of the month, but it was very important to me that funds be put in this budget to allow for an increase in salary for our police officers. And that has been done. And it is my goal that by the end of this month, we will have established an increase in pay for our police officers, the first increase in pay they've received since the fall of 2018. And in this day and time when we have seen police officers leaving because they can literally make more money at other businesses and not have to carry a gun and a badge and sacrifice themselves for the safety of the public. You know, it's a challenging time for law enforcement. And if ever there was a time we need to consider making sure we put law enforcement first, this is it. I also want to say this budget takes into account all of the improvements in our parks and establishing a solid budget for parks and recreation, which up until just last year, we didn't even have a full-time parks and recreation department. It also establishes the means utilizing the bond funds to carry out and complete this year the recreational renewal project, meaning the restoration of not only playgrounds but also buildings. You all know what they are. And then I also want to say this, it incorporates the bonds that we just approved. And within this budget, we will also be able to make significant improvements, $6 million to our streets, and also significant improvements to our convention center, our city auditorium, and a number of other buildings. Also include in this budget continuation of great programs for our city and an expansion of those programs. So that's just a little fly at a high altitude. We'll dive now a little lower. We're going to turn it over to you, Madam Clerk.
First, I wanted to point out that there was an increase in the ad valorem from the current fiscal year to the upcoming fiscal year. Current fiscal year being about 5.9 million, and fiscal year 23 projected to be 6.2.
And let's make sure that's an increase in value. It's not an increase in millage.
Right. We have not increased the millage for the city. This is the assessed values have increased by almost 300,000. And that comes from a reduction in the hospital tax credits. This comes from the Holiday Inn TIF coming off, and some things like that did increase our assessed value. And what we project to gain in revenues from the current millage, which is the 46.732 mills that the city has been receiving for several years now. I believe it was 2017 was the last time that the millage was increased. With that being said, the spreadsheet that was sent to you all last week for review, there's been some minor changes, mainly into the 347 fund, which is the ARPA funds, based on a meeting had with the county folks over the Morgantown Road project. And then also after meeting with Alderman Hall about some recreation discussions, there was a correction. It said for the cost of water, it was not, it was cost of electricity that had not gone into the park administration side of the budget. So with that going in, we needed to increase the amount coming from the general fund to recreation by $20,000 to make sure that they were balanced. So that brings the general fund balance at the end of the year, if, everything is approved the way that it's laid out, to $138,504. So we still have a little, very small margin, but a little bit of cushion at the end of the year. So I guess I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have based on your review of the budget that's sent to you all.
All right, thank you. I would like to state this is a discussion, and so there is no motion required at this time. The floor is open for discussion.
I have some.
Alderwoman Irving.
And
Yes.
it's with our appropriations on page 11.
Okay. Would you,
It's on page 8.
okay. All right, Alderwoman.
Okay, beginning with our veteran, we're gonna allocate, veteran service. We're allocating $4,500 to them this year,
That
so there
is,
was a reduction.
that's correct. That's what we paid in the current fiscal year. And they had also the Reads Across America is at $500.
Okay, okay,
Those combined is what made up
Okay.
their 5,000. So based on their request and what they actually invoiced for those appropriations, that's how that split was done.
okay. And, Natchez Humane Society, what was that, 23? We did an increase with it?
So in previous years, it was 25,000. In the current fiscal year, there was a reduction to 22.
Mhm.
In the upcoming fiscal year, I put it back at 25. They actually have requested more, but this is something that was workable for the city's budget moving forward.
Okay.
Would you like for us to come back to you, Alderwoman?
No, I'm still going down the
Okay.
list. It's with Natchez Children's Services.
All
So,
right.
and my reason for asking, because none of these were brought to the board to vote on whether or not we would increase these. So, I don't have a problem with it. I just want to know. We're the legislative body.
Right.
And so when it comes to the finances, it should come to the board. And we agree to do it. I'm not against it.
Right. Well,
But
that's,
when you look at something and you see that it's half that amount has been doubled, for children's services last year, we did $2,500. I see it's 5,000 this year. But just want to make sure.
If I could, just a clarification.
Mhm.
That is a matter that was boarded on unanimously by this board a few months ago. We're just bringing the budget in line with that. Also, you made a good point that all spending does have to be approved by the Board of Aldermen, and that's why we're having this budget workshop.
But not
This
the
is-
increase before the board decides on it. It has to come.
As I said, we can look it up in the minutes for you, Alderwoman,
Mhm.
but that was unanimously decided several months ago. And we just brought the budget in line with what this board had already previously approved for children's service.
Okay, and Locust Alley, that was something that we have never made an allocation to, appropriation to, and
so in the
Yes.
appropriation section, you'll notice a lot of these do not have account numbers. These are special projects and different things that did not have their own account numbers within the fund, within the general fund. So for the sake of the budget and presenting the finances to y'all, what has been requested for different projects, different appropriations, so forth, I've listed these here. Once you all tell me what you want to keep and what you want
Okay.
removed,
Okay.
then these will line items will be created and
Okay.
these will be moved to their appropriate places.
Okay,
But, you know, in an effort to save unnecessary work, if you all are not going to approve these, I didn't want to go and set those line items up in the system and create account numbers if they weren't going to stay. So that, yeah, that's the other side of this is all of this is just what's been requested.
okay,
So I put it together in a way to show you all that this is what we can make work with
Okay.
the funds that we have coming in. So, you know, until you all approve this budget, none of this is set in stone.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Fraser.
I'm glad you made some clarifications on this because there's a lot of stuff that I see on here that we should have addressed in the line item set down one by one. Now, I don't remember that we did just sit down as did this line by line item. I can't remember that we did that, but there's a lot of stuff that I have a lot of questions about, and I'd rather not to as of now to bring it out in the open. I'd rather that we get behind closed doors and do this because I don't want
We
to.
can't do that.
I
You
mean,
can't go behind.
I'm talking
I know,
about.
but you can't go
I am
behind closed
talking.
doors.
I'm not
Alderman
doing-
Fraser has the floor.
I'm not talking. And I'm just saying that we're gonna do a budget, but like I said, I think that we should did, like I say, go behind closed doors and discuss like that. I'll be honest, I just can't remember that we went line by line. And I will say this, Ms. Mayor, we did discuss some of these stuff like dealing with salaries and other stuff. We have discussed that, but I see a lot of stuff on here that we did not discuss. And I'm glad that you made the clarification that we are not really, this is just something request and to be taken off. But like I say, Mr. Mayor, as it stands now, like I say, I have a lot of questions on a lot of stuff.
All right, thank you, Alderman Fraser. This is a budget workshop, and it is an appropriate time to ask those questions if you would like to ask them.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, Alderwoman Hall.
Yes,
Has
sir. I
her
just
hand
wanted on the
raised.
record that I will not go behind closed doors to discuss anything doing with this budget, but just for the public.
Thank you.
Ms. Mayor, I had another.
Yes, Alderman Dillard,
Okay,
I think you were asking to be recognized, and then we'll come back to you, Alderwoman Irving.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did get received on Friday or whenever Jerry brought it around. So this was Friday. So I've got the current worksheet. That's all I'm kind of confirming there. Mr. Mayor, the ad valorem, projected ad valorem increase is a number that I'm still struggling with. This year is projected at 3.1 million. Last year, it is amended at 2.4 million. The year before that, the actual was 1.6 million. And that's 100% increase in that ad valorem line item. And I just, I think for me anyhow, I think we're going to have to sit down and run this through, maybe with our auditor or something to verify these numbers. The increase in that one line item is almost 1.6 or 1.5 million dollars. It just very stark looking in this paper. The other item that I find is the homestead exemptions is it's not as stark, but it's going from $200,000, which is going to be amended to this year, to $320,000. The reason I say that is usually the ad valorem monies, they move and they're not inflationary or that sort of stuff. They move incrementally and in small increments. So I'd like to ask that we get this with our outside accountant and with our auditors to see that we are actually projecting a number that will hold. The other thing is that a question to the clerk: has this most current September the 2nd worksheet been forwarded on to our outside accountant, Mr. Wallace?
The one that I sent out last week, I have not had a chance to get to Wallace for their review. But I did send the previous worksheet to him, and he went line by line. Any questions he had or notations that he asked for have been added and addressed.
Well, I went through those myself line by line, and I may have to talk with Wallace about, because some of them, yes, had been. For example, I want to say in our tax anticipation loan, there was a decimal point. It moved from, $100,000 and it needs to be $1 million. My question about how was that reconciled? Because $900,000 is a rather large number to be absorbed in this and not show up somewhere. So I get the point that it was typographically entered as
Right.
100,000 and it should have
So,
been $1 million.
there were several different things. There were additional cuts made. There were ARPA monies used for appropriate spendings for equipment and different one-time expenses. Also, some of the projects that you all were wanting to try to tackle in this upcoming fiscal year and helping pay for match monies and different things like that help, create that additional revenue.
The other thi-
Along with some other typographical and footing errors that were.
The other thing, Mr. Mayor, that when I look at this column all the way to the left, we have to remember that we'll get this tonight with the auditor. Fiscal year 21 has not been audited, so our column all the way to the left, I'm going to say it's a mauve color. But I did notice between August the 3rd and the report that we're having here, if you flip to the last page, it's there's a difference in that. These actuals. And so this was, let's see if I can get my old one back with me. The older one, these numbers have changed. So I'm concerned that are we still working through a process of correcting the actuals?
Yes, so we are still making corrections to the actuals. There will still be corrections made to the proposed amended for the current fiscal year as those numbers, come back to us and as we continue to work through this last month of the current fiscal year. As far as, and I know where you're heading with this, there were a number of entries that were made, mostly casino lease monies being moved to the general fund that for years have been classed as loans, that it is quite obvious that the general fund will not be able to repay those loans. So those were reclassed as transfers within the audit to clear those balances, moving forward continuously year after year. So that had a significant increase on these end of the year numbers that you're referring to.
I think you're talking about the casino lease funds, that those have been classified as interfund loans and now reclassified as transfers, which there's a correction there. But let's say, for example, if I looked at page 8 and I was looking at the general funds kind of bottom line there, currently we're showing a deficit of $726,000 year to date in the general fund. There's not many months left in this.
So, again, we had balance carryovers once those transfers are classed as transfers that will carry that. But the reason you're seeing that is the ice storm projects, that loan having to be paid off and the MEMA reimbursements still having not yet been received.
Well, that's a good question. Has the ice storm monies been realized, or are we still waiting
For those reimbursements?
I think the comment I'd like to make about that, Mr. Mayor, is that we have to realize that working with the federal government, who's obviously much bigger than we are, they can approve something, but the funds never realize or never ever make it to where they're going. So we have to be careful when we kind of extend ourselves out ahead of it and thinking that our federal funds are on the way. They may never show up, which is it. I don't know if I have much confidence that they will. I'm kind of concerned about that. I think also if I look towards the last page, which is kind of looking at the back of the book, back again, I see 21 and I see the bottom numbers on the current year to date. So again, that $700,000 deficit, some of that will be reconciled, you're thinking, in that reclassification, am I correct?
Well, we will be able to cover some of that with a reclassification if those MEMA monies do not arrive by the end of the fiscal year.
And so that's also is that also what affects 21? Because it shows that it had incurred a $1.7 million deficit.
Right. So those, like, again, I'm still working on updating the numbers in that column. Today it was more about looking at the upcoming fiscal year and what you all want included in the budget and what you all don't want included.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for now.
Okay.
I'll have more questions, but I want to yield and let somebody else ask some questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Dillard, I do want to make a comment. One reason that we are seeing such an improvement in ad valorem, as mentioned, is that there has been both an increase in the values for ad valorem calculations. In addition to that, a significant tax credit has come off of the books for this next fiscal year pertaining to the hospital. And that is a very
decreased.
fortunate.
Yeah, it's not completely off, but
It-
there has been a significant decrease.
A decrease, thank you, a decrease. So that has helped, that has helped. Also, I am looking forward to seeing what the audit reveals. Obviously, we had a challenge with the historic ice storm. And I think we all would agree that leaving the limbs and the debris on our streets and cemetery and parks was not an option. We are in communication with MEMA, and we have been told recently that the money should be on its way. I'm with you, Alderman Dillard. I'll be happy to see it when it arrives. I will say we are not the only city or municipality in this situation. In fact, it's my understanding that Adams County is owed even more back from MEMA than we are. So let's hope that we can get that resolved soon. Alderman Dillard,
Another
yeah.
question to the city clerk. When we're doing, again, the ad valorems, are we assessing or calculating it on the 95%
We are.
of the assessed value?
We are.
So we're
and,
still doing 95%.
Right, and I thought that I had provided all of you all with the assessed valuation spreadsheet. And
Did we?
You did.
I need, can I get a copy of that? Because
Absolutely.
I still think it's a start. I have another question on
Okay.
page.
Alderman Frazier. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. On page one, public utilities Avalon.
Mhm.
Is that for 20? That's an increase, or I see you got a mispost.
So for the current fiscal year, you'll see that 267.3.
Okay.
That was misposted as far as how that was broken out across the funds, and so those corrections also have been put in. And so once I get to where I'm updating the proposed amended and the year-to-dates, then that will reflect there. You'll see that the year-to-date amount mentioned for the current fiscal year was actually done at the end of July. So, there's no sense in going in every week or every 2 weeks and trying to update these numbers all the way through. I was trying to get a little bit closer to that end number to be able to give a more accurate proposed amended and year-to-date numbers.
Okay. Same on this Adams County Fire Protection. We are expecting an increase of the, we discussed it.
So we actually have a meeting set tomorrow for our city team that's working on those numbers, so that we can then move forward and setting up a meeting with the county to discuss those. But the way that those have been projected out, yes, we are expecting an increase there.
You stated excuse me, you stated you have a meeting. Who you have a meeting? Who all in the meeting with you?
I know the city attorney and myself and the mayor and Ben are all meeting tomorrow to discuss. the
Okay, I wasn't
spreadsheet.
aware, but I'm on that committee. I wasn't aware of that.
It wasn't a full committee meeting. It was more of a contractual deal. That we took the spreadsheet where those CPI adjustments and 3% penalty adjustments were made each year. And that spreadsheet was actually created by the previous county administrator. And so we have updated that and moved forward and trying to just kind of get it together within the city before we meet with the county about those increases.
Okay, same page. Are we projected to get this from Grand Gulf, or we?
Yes, that actually, I think usually comes in at the very end of July, beginning of August. So again, those numbers will be updated.
That go into the general fund, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
All of these on page 1 are general fund.
okay, oh, yeah, I see, for the city hall roof, and I thought we had spent that money, I see 75,000, we project of, I thought we was through with that project.
So there were some monies
Left.
left on the table, and there are some additional things being done within City Hall to utilize the remaining funds
Okay,
that will overflow into the current fiscal year.
okay, it was allocated for the roof, but we're gonna take that money
It was allowable to use for some other items
in the
For the
city.
roof.
City hall.
for City Hall. Mhm.
Okay, okay. So we're not, I was looking at the raising of Silver Street, so that was cruise line for the state, so we on hold with that, am I correct, Ms. Mayor?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just trying to account for it so that if it does happen, then we're ready.
okay. And down on the same page, we are raising the rates for water.
That is something that you all will have to address and approve. That is something that you all need to look at doing because we have been given an increase from Aero Disposal. And so, if the city is not going to have to make up that difference, then the board will need to look at increasing the rates to on the water bills to help make up that difference.
Okay, okay. And I see down here, the project Silver Street, that's still on hold too, that road and bond,
That's correct.
that's on hold. Okay, what is, this miscellaneous police, revenue, okay. And down, it say expenses refunds, but FY 2022 included an anticipation of 775,000 reimbursement. That's the FEMA money thing.
That's correct.
Okay. The downtown farmers market, we went from 7,500 to 8,000. We're increasing that. Mr. Mayor, are we increasing that?
That's
500?
an anticipated increase to the revenues.
Oh, this is anticipation. Okay, $500.
And that's the revenue side of it.
Okay, and I'm looking at, we got how many bucks? What is this? I'm down here, it's 524, I'm trying to get ACL and Fry Bill, what?
So those are the monies that come in from Fry Building, the rent at the Fry Building, and the monies that we receive from American Cruise Lines, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, $2 per passenger that they pay to the city when they dock here.
Okay, okay,
And those, at whatever point prior to me coming back, that's been kind of promotional
okay.
expenses.
Alderman Frazier, where is that you're making those comments on?
It's on page 1. It's ACL and Fry Building.
I'm bifocused.
It's like 7, 8 lines
It's,
up from the bottom,
it's created, I
001.
think it's created, it's 348, 00001, 348.
It's
524.
524.
No, it's 524.
520, okay. You see it already, Dylan?
I haven't, but I'm gonna get Alderman.
It's right under
Davis.
Harmony in the Park.
I see Harmony.
Okay, and it's right
It's
below
directly
it.
under-
Oh, okay,
It's
the comments in the comment section. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong place. Thank you.
Okay, it said, also transfer other funds. We done transferred, we don't get 1,330,000, but 30,000 casino community development. And that's for 1 million casino lease funds and
Right.
we done,
So those transfers in $1 million from the casino lease monies, which has been done annually for several years now to help fund the general fund. 30,000 from the Casino Community Development Fund, and that's actually being transferred in to cover the expense in relation to the Locust Alley project. And then 300,000 for the from the road bond monies to help with the expense of the Silver Street project, the raising of Silver Street. So again, if the Silver Street project does not move forward in this fiscal year, then those monies will not be transferred in. But I
They remain in the
needed to,
general fund.
it will remain in the road bond monies. I just have to account for it so that if we do receive all of the state and private monies for that project, that we are prepared within the budget to move forward with the city's portion of those expenses.
Okay. We're still on the legislative, but I just want to ask you, I'm looking at a wage and salary, this $123,000. So that's with the increase of the people within, because I don't want to go down in front.
That's correct, yes. There were some increases that were allowable to bring some of the board members up slightly based on state requirements. And so
Let me interject. I don't want anyone thinking there are no raises
No.
for any member of the Board of Aldermen in this budget, but there was a situation where we had one individual who had been barred for legal reasons.
By state law, federal law.
If you
I
want to
can
speak
get
to
up
that, Alderwoman
Yes,
Hall.
I will. I can get what their salary that every last one of you get by federal and state law.
And finally, she's going to be able to get paid. She's actually been working mostly.
Gratuitous.
I've stated the fact, that's it. I'm not
Move
getting a
on.
raise. I'm getting what
No.
every alderman can make.
I will say, you've actually been working pro bono.
No, I was
For
just,
some of
I
the
was,
time.
I was just.
I just want to make sure we
We're
answer
being
it
transparent.
so that there isn't anyone thinking out there that we're
Nobody-
making a raise
Nobody's
to
getting a raise.
salaries of aldermen.
No, I didn't, let me reiterate this again. I'm just going down through the budget. I didn't.
You're
know,
doing great,
And I'm
Alderman.
just asking questions.
And you did, and that was a very good question. I wanted to make sure we answered it.
Like I say,
Fair. It wouldn't be thought that any
oh,
of
No,
you
we're
were
being
getting a raise.
transparent.
Okay. Now, I need some, down on wage and salaries, down further. I need some removal of.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
explain it.
here that we just rearranged some people and put them back into their appropriate departments. The previous clerk and the previous budget moved a couple of people out of the mayor's budget and actually put them into the city clerk's budget. So I have moved them from the city clerk's budget back to the mayor's. And then Ms. Hardy was listed in the mayor's budget, and she has actually been moved to a new department, if you will, where it was reclassed and moved Ms. Hardy and Mr. Hinkle to a more appropriate place within the budget instead of just sticking them in random departments.
The same with, Pam and Jerry.
Pam and Jerry were moved back to the mayor's budget from the city clerk's budget.
Okay.
So
Let me
then
go-
you'll see that, there's a kind of comparable decrease to the wages and salaries within the city clerk's budget.
I want to just make a
up.
comment. We need to be careful discussing employee
I can see it
positions.
about going to executive session, because
Um,
personnel, you would have to.
We're not making any decisions today with regard to any
Okay, I'll just.
salary.
I'll just-
I just want to
Okay,
caution
thank you.
everyone that we do have to be very careful in how we discuss particular individuals in a public
Okay, let me
setting.
go to, I want to discuss that anymore. Let me go to page 4. Down last, 625, internet service. That is projected for the whole city of Natchez.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that also, I believe, includes the phones and all with
Okay,
this net link that we're now using.
okay, 264, can you explain that to me, the downtown farmers market, that's 16,000?
Yes, so there are some expenses for the city, being that we are the host of the downtown Natchez Farmers Market. one of those being the director's pay. And so that is the bulk of this amount.
Alderwoman Smith.
Or just while he's looking.
Yes, Alderwoman
I'm
Smith.
just, I'm hearing the questions I've asked, we'll get the same information. I'm done with my questions. Is there any vote or anything?
No,
I need
we're
to
not
say?
making any votes
Okay.
at this time. We'll see you at the meeting later today at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Alderman Frazier, you still have the floor.
Let me see. I have to check it out. I can't, let's wait and salary, I'm gonna discuss that. Training. I don't need to discuss that. Let me see. This is, on page 5. This public works. And it's, I would say $69,400 for traffic signals out of 8. That's money that the federal government allows us to.
So like we have done with some
That's
other
Page 6.
uses. But yes, I mean, this would be necessary equipment for, public safety, which would be allowable. But like we have done with some other, using the ARPA funds for payroll purposes, which then frees up general fund monies that are less restricted. But these equipment expenses, which are actually labeled in 347 ARPA fund account and fund, are allowable expenses there.
Okay, what it is 8K for going down to 69.
Those were additional public works equipment, miscellaneous smaller equipment that the public works director requested. And in the office, I have a breakdown of exactly what all equipment, but again, that's, kind of equipment related in maintaining infrastructure and public safety with mowing and different things in those regards. Traffic equipment.
Can I get a copy of that? Sure. The breakdown, so you can see what equipment that is.
The 637 contract service. But that's for public works, we're getting an increase in that, $1,429,122. That's projected, but
I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the same line. items.
department, let me get a department,
If you can give me the account number to the far left. that
it's
would be-
the number 001-220-637.
That is your garbage collection contract services. So yes, we are expecting an increase.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, along
If
that,
I could ask one quick question, have you budgeted for an increase in fees? Madam Clerk?
So that was what he addressed
Right.
previously on page 1
Yes.
to help offset that increase.
So
That
you
is
have
something
budgeted for an
Yes.
increase in fees,
that we need to,
which will be a decision we'll have to make.
right.
And how much would that equate? Do you have that information? How much that
Per
would equate
bill,
per?
I do
Or
not.
we need that
Yeah.
by this evening,
Okay.
because that is a question I know everyone will want to ask. Garbage rates may be going up a bit.
Yes, per
Mr. Mayor,
household increase.
along that same line,
Yes,
there
Alderman Dillon.
have we reviewed the contract? What's increasing it? Is it a CPI index? Is it a fuel recovery? Is it it's a
There
CPI
were
index?
several factors that played into that, and I can get you a copy of that letter again that ADSI sent out some months ago.
I mean, I understand it is a contract and there are mechanisms that either we can agree to. He's not just raising his cost of services.
No,
It
there
must be in an
was,
agreement.
there was fuel increases, and then there was a CPI that fell into the contract. It was all done by contract.
And some of this actually happened about 2 months ago.
That's correct.
And it was during, I believe that was our first meeting in July, where it was actually
I
spread on the
believe so.
minutes.
Yeah.
We could look back,
Yeah.
but And I reluctantly saw that letter and said, agreed with the attorney, yeah, we don't have any choice. It's in the contract. It's just, yeah. Alderman Dillard?
I do have a question, and it, Mr. Mayor, do we have any information on the workforce development? Because, I mean, I know we have an employee here, but when will we know whether we're going to have a project for her to administer? I mean, that's where I'm kind of questioning that. I know we have a director, but if we don't have the project, we have an employee without a purpose.
There are some very good things in the works in that department. And I expect we'll have some very good news to share very soon.
Well, I mean, soon is it, but right now it kind of begs the question. I mean, we obviously hired this person. We kind of got ahead of ourselves. I mean, we took out we hired a grant writer to secure the grant, and we're still waiting on the grant. So we almost got ahead of ourselves.
We probably ought to bring her in for an update soon, and I think that'd be a good idea. Alderman Davis.
She also got to look with the building Facebook page and put information out on that too.
Yeah, I would say she is doing a lot to bring
Yes.
all of those programs
We've had
together
multiple meetings
to
with
make
the
offerings, and also some new programs being put in place, and some very good things in the works with regard to a workforce training center to be located at the Stafford Building. But yeah, we can
We've
have an
had-
update.
we've had
updates.
We've had
but we
meetings. We've
we
had
can
multiple
have some
meetings
more.
with different agencies.
But the information is
Public
never
meetings.
shared with the entire board, so we don't know. So it leaves you without knowing that information,
We'll
even though
make sure.
things are happening.
Right.
That's, if committees are meeting or commissions are meeting, then none of that is shared. And if we just need updates so that
Of
we
course
can
you
see
do.
what's going on.
Of course you
Mr.
do.
Mayor,
Alderwoman
I'm not going
Hall.
to belabor that, but we've had meetings with other agencies that board members have been invited to. So you come, you don't, you don't. But
If
there've been public
You
meetings.
are not aware, you
workforce-
can't come.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have.
Yes,
Are you
I'm
finished,
sorry.
Alderman Frazier?
I believe Alderman Frazier still has some
Yeah.
things and we entertained a question from Alderman Dillard, but I'm
Yes.
going to come back to Alderman Frazier.
Down at Department 001, 532, 637, page 7. usually 7. What about, this is the yearly payment that we pay on the convention center,
Not on the bond.
on the bond.
This is just the amount that is paid to the convention center for upkeep and maintenance and routine operations. And it's been the same amount for many years. In fact, I believe it was this $348,000 a year back when I was here previously.
And accurately described, it is the money's budgeted to operate and maintain the convention. It's not paid to Mr. Ruther, because that becomes a misunderstanding that he's being paid. That's an operating budget that the city sets aside to operate and maintain and put the convention center available to the public. But you're right, the number's been very consistent.
Let me see. I was gonna go to page 8, but we're gonna discuss that in a later date. Let me see.
Now's the time. You wanna
Yeah,
discuss
we
it?
need to
No.
discuss it.
This is
No,
a-
I'm talking about some of the items on
this is
here.
a work-
Okay.
This is a
What this
workshop. This is
for?
public.
If there are any you'd like to
I'd
have
like
more
to find
information
out,
on, certainly.
You can explain this to me. Live at 5. What is it?
Yes, that is something that the board, the city has been sponsoring now for several years. And there are concerts held in the spring and also the fall at the bandstand, open to the entire community. And that has become a very popular event throughout the year.
And
And I don't
just
believe
want to
that amount
clarify,
has changed.
Well, you see zeros.
It's just that we are
across the board.
budgeting for it, but this is what we've been
Okay.
paying.
Right,
No,
and
it's
so
not.
that,
She asked last year in January for 3,000.
Yeah.
And so we increased from the 3,000 to
But
5,000.
we can get a clarification. I
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I can.
may
take
be
a look.
thinking we were just doing the
We're
spring.
doing 1,000.
Maybe we were doing the spring and the fall.
Yes, there was a discussion. on
Okay.
it.
And we had up
But
to,
also, you see zeros kind of across the board from the previous couple of years, and that's not the case. This has been paid. However, this is one of those items that did not have its own line item within the budget. And so it was being paid from contingencies. And so this was kind of in my effort to show more clearly, each individual expense that you all are approving and it not just being paid from contingencies and falling into a lump sum.
Mhm.
So you'll see the contingencies budget went down significantly, and then these are broken out individually.
Okay.
Okay.
I have,
Yes, Alderman.
it's 30,000 locals, that, what is that?
This Locust Alley is one of those projects that was discussed and approved by the board several months ago. I'd have to go back and look in the minutes to see when it was approved, but $30,000 from the casino community development monies to do kind of a renovation of that area to create an event area, of an unused area of downtown.
We haven't actually approved the final amount.
Okay.
We are waiting on word from, we have several individuals who have been working on that along with Entergy.
And I guess the approval
And
was
we're
to
waiting
move
for
forward
them
in
to present to
creating.
us a final amount. But the idea was that this was a project that the Community Development Fund would be able to take on. We're waiting on that final.
Right, so
So-
the final amount isn't approved, but approved in moving forward with the planning of this space.
So-
was approved.
So, Ms. Mayor, so we're trying to, create a mini Bourbon Street. Okay.
No.
Only there's no bar space.
Well, that's.
It's just a way to
Well-
light up an alley
Well,
that is dark now and to create
They got
more opportunities.
They got some nice alleys in New Orleans.
Yeah, they do. You're right. And yes, and some of those have been inspirations for this. You're correct.
What, Natchez, is this the Natchez Community Thanksgiving Dinner? Is that who
Must be.
That is actually a program that was started last year.
by the city?
No, by Carla Brown. And you may recall she has a nonprofit and she fed a lot of people. The board has not actually approved that as of yet, but she did present a letter, and that amount has been put into this, budget draft. And it's not only she feeds both individuals. There were several hundred at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, with the sponsorship of many in our community.
Okay. Let me go to the next one. We again on page 9.
Before you go, can I just add one?
Yes,
I would like to just add that the amount for the Minorville Jubilee has also doubled into this. So it will also be approved once we approve the budget.
That's right. It has gone. We were
Yeah, I just
for
wanted to
years
point that
giving
out.
500, and we have increased
That's
that
correct.
amount this year. What have we increased it to? Just
1,000.
for clarification of that. All right. Thank you.
thank you, Mr.
Alderman Frazier.
Before we leave that.
Yes, Alderwoman Irving.
The Juneteenth, that has not been included here. The Juneteenth fund, or the allocation for Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, we have supported every year.
Right,
Where
but it's
is
not
that,
here
Madam
appropriate.
Clerk?
I believe that's probably one of the ones that just in my efforts of listing these out did not get picked up.
Well,
Absolutely.
we've been
So
giving
this is
3,000.
Yeah,
We need to make sure, and thank you, Alderwoman Irving. We
And
need to
there's
make
one
sure
more,
that is noted. We've been giving 3,000
and there's one
a
more,
year. Yes,
Soul Fusion.
that is part of the
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. We've been
So,
giving
okay.
1,500 to that,
Right.
and then 1,500 to the general.
Okay.
Yeah. In addition to using some other dollars for promotion, communication, advertisement, and those just come out of our general promotion and
Okay.
advertisement budget.
Okay.
One more, on the same
All right,
page,
Alderman
page 8.
We do need to make sure, though, that is itemized, 3,000 for Juneteenth.
I'm still on page.
Alderman Frazier,
Yeah, I'm still on page 8.
back
I
to
just
you.
want to ask a question, the clerk. All these appropriations that we have on here right now, do we have any money that's gonna be that we're gonna allocate to give to someone else who comes really good, who's asking for donations or anything, or any proposal or anything?
You know, the board can do what the board wants to do at any time, but it would be my encouragement to you that going forward in this new budget year, if they're not on this list and we have not budgeted,
Okay.
that they be asked to come back next year for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have asked
Alderman.
that happen.
Yes,
Both
we
Mr.
have.
Dillard and I have asked that
Yes, you
that
have.
they come before the board, before we do our budget.
Yes,
Okay.
you have. Alderwoman Irving, you had a question.
But with that being said, we've had two proposals being presented to us at this board. We had one from the NAPAC Museum. That proposal was asking, gave the whole line, I have it here,
Mhm.
for $35,000 they're asking for to do infrastructure improvements to the NAPAC. And then we had NAAC, grant of NAACP, and they came with Project Alice that's going to enhance and revitalize communities here, and they were asking for $50,000. And so what we said we would do is table it. We've never had that discussion. It has never been brought back up among the board members to include that in this budget. And so that, at this time, I'd like to make a motion. And we don't have Sarah, and we'll do this evening. We could have done this evening, that we will include both of those to be, because
Yeah, this is just a discussion. We can't entertain
Okay.
motions.
Can't entertain
at this
motions.
time.
no,
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I will say that we have considered all of that. We are very grateful that a grant has been obtained that will allow us to make improvements to the lighting at NAPAC in the spring. And we'll confirm the amount of that grant. We'll need to ask. We've been successful in getting that grant. We also are going to be looking at other grant opportunities. It needs to be reminded, though, we just completed a renovation of the exterior of NAPAC, and there are some other things we're about to do, including a very significant signage campaign that we will be embarking upon as soon as the signs are delivered toward the latter part of this fall. With regard to the grants, yes, the board can do whatever it would like to, but I would say that we have been very pleased with what's happening with our SNAP program. But also, we are now in discussions with the Mississippi Home Corporation for grant funds there that actually could come to the city and not require an expenditure of city funds, but would do a similar purpose as has been proposed through Alice
Correct.
and that program. Yes, Alderwoman Irving.
I was asking whether or not Alderman Frazier's finished, because I have some questions.
Yeah, we are going to go back to Alderman Frazier right now, if you'll hold those questions.
I had a question, but that was clear, that was cleared up by you, Mr. Mayor. The question I simply was I was going to ask about the NAPAC Museum. I see where we had budget for 16,000, went down to 10. So I have to explain the situation. I see that there's going to be some improvements there anyway, grant improvements. So that's all as I look around now, Mr. Mayor, I will yield my time up
Okay.
to some other one.
All right, thank you, Alderman Frazier. Alderwoman Irving, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna go back to page 1, and it's with the privilege tax license.
Yes.
Okay, I see we have a decrease in that. And in 2021, we had allocated or set an amount of $50,000. And I was asking, why is there a decrease when we have new businesses that have opened? I think I can recall over 30 businesses opened in this past year. So we should be asking for an increase in that. And instead, I think we need to hold that right at the $50,000.
Okay. So as you can see, though we did budget 50,000 for this year, those revenues are not coming in the way it's projected and hoped. There were several after the renewal notices were sent out that we had not received when I last updated this. So when I go and I put the year-to-date amounts, we will have a better idea of how close we can get to that 50 or how far we will fall short. So I was trying to be conservative and bringing that back down to Um, just like I said, a much more conservative number. On the revenue side, I would much rather budget low and have more monies come in than budget the expectation of revenues that we may or may not receive, and then we would be looking, at a deficit. If I can budget revenues low and balance, then any additional revenues that come in only put us in that much better position at the end of the year.
Okay. Then I have a question. How did we adjust if we had businesses open up in July? Did we make adjustments for
So
that fee?
yes, so that's prorated as to when that is done and within the fiscal year.
Okay.
And when
Because,
those notices are sent out.
I just want to make sure that we are collecting all of our fees from all our businesses.
We do our very best.
Okay. So my next question is,
Very
if we have them and they don't pay, then what happens? What's the
So once upon a time, in years past when we were having this problem, we actually had our code enforcement officer go around to all of the local businesses, checking to see if they had a current business license from the city. And if they didn't, they were given so much time, and then you went back and revisited and so forth, trying to, make a true effort in collecting those fees. And so, we send out renewal notices, but, the city clerk's office and the planning department don't have the manpower to go door to door to make sure these are done. So again, that is something that, historically in the past fell on code enforcement.
And that may be the reason why we need to get more than one person to do code enforcement, so that is revenue coming in, and that's revenue that we need to be collecting. And so one other question, when we collect for privilege tax, are the business owners, are they paying for their space and employees? How is that?
So on the application, it breaks down as to what we can charge. It's so much for a business with X amount of employees. Then it goes up per, number of employees and so forth. Now, we're not charging on square footage. And then the personal property tax is paid to the county and then divvied out to us through ad valorem. So, we don't charge privilege license based on inventory and square footage.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor,
Yes,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Alderman Irving, do you have more questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I just wanted to go back down to visit the tourism promotion, and I just want to ask about whether or not it had here the Fry building. So I guess I'm looking over here. Do we still have tenants? Are we collecting rent?
We do. It's, I think about $1,500 a month is what we receive from the tenants of the project.
That's each or per
Total. Each month, we receive about $1,500 total in rent from that building.
Right. Then I want to ask the question to employees, what budget did they go in? Those two employees, I don't want to mention their names.
So the new department, if you will, just to help better classify some of our folks, became the community promotion. It's about halfway, a little over halfway down on page 3. So we've got 2 employees listed there. We've got some miscellaneous expenses, which again is community promotion. It's not necessarily directly tied to the 2 employees that are listed here, but any kind of city events and different things that we're paying for. And that's where a lot of that is coming from. And that ties back to that community promotion money we were just talking about, revenue side.
Okay.
And then contract services, professional services, publishing and advertising, and again, all of those being, a lot of that being paid out of contingencies previously, breaking that out of contingencies, putting it in a more reasonable area of the budget so it can be better tracked.
Okay.
And then there was a small equipment line item added here, and
Do we know what equipment that is?
It's going cameras and different things since we no longer contract for the filming of the board meetings, and we're handling that in-house. There is some equipment that's needed to make it more comparable to what we were previously paying, the private contract that we were using for that.
Okay, and then I also see the imaginary company, an increase of $6,000 there.
No, not all of that. 6,000 of that 15,000 is for imaginary company, and then the rest of it is other professional services that may come into play.
What company is that?
That is the one that handles, and Mayor helped me here because she does a whole lot.
Vidal Blankenstein.
Right.
Vidal does a lot of graphic work for the city. A lot of the ads that you see, the layouts that you see, the designs, for instance, ads that appear in the Natchez Democrat, the Bluff City Post, tourism magazines, and others. She's designed those, and she actually, we actually have got to get her caught up. She has gone above and beyond with so many events recently in helping us.
Okay, I just see the monthly fee when I look on the our claims docket each month. I see that amount that we pay her is $549, and then
Sometimes it fluctuates. She does put in other duties, and sometimes she will actually, for instance, I'll give you one example. She designed the new signs for NAPAC, those beautiful new banners that are now metallic. She designed those. She fronted the cost of those, and we had to reimburse her for that.
okay.
Yeah.
And while we're on that page 3, Mayor,
Mhm.
when Miss Charlotte was introduced to us, and I know you said not holiday, I thought she was volunteer. And I
Oh,
know
no,
people
no.
need to be paid for their services. I'm not saying, but I thought she was someone volunteer.
Oh, no, no.
Remember
She,
that was stated, you know.
She
coming
quite a
in.
while ago filled a vacant position. It was a part-time position. This existed for years.
Where
In city planning department. If you'll recall, the former city planner had at one time been a part-time employee in that department.
Mhm.
And then that department had not been filled, and she filled that
I had
position.
no idea
Oh,
that she
yeah.
filled it. I actually thought
Okay.
that it was volunteer, and
No,
I
no,
and I did.
no.
I mentioned that, and so we're looking to give her a raise as well.
I'm not going to discuss that in an open meeting.
Oh,
We're just putting some budget things. Anything pertaining to personnel has to be discussed in executive
But
session.
that's why we may need to have one for that reason, because there is.
We
some
aren't
other-
making any
Okay.
decisions on
Okay.
raises at this time.
And then
I've just made, I made public comments at the beginning that I do want to make sure we remember our police officers in this budget.
on page 2, I just wanted to ask the scanners, and it's going to be equipment for the city clerk. What are those?
So that we can digitize records. And so my hope is to be able to buy 2 scanners and software needed to install those scanners. One in the HR department and one at the chief deputy clerk on her desk, so that we can start digitizing moving forward, and hopefully be able to, like with our summer intern workers, and I'll be able to have them scanning throughout their time during the summers to maybe work on some of the backlog,
Mhm.
to kind of move into the future of going paperless and better record maintenance and retention.
Thank you. That is great. I have one other thing. I just want to ask a question here. With the insurance premium loan, did we get a loan? What does that mean?
So, yes, historically, we do have to take out a loan, and that comes before the board, and I send for quotes from the different local banks to pay our general liability and workers' comp insurance premiums. And then we pay that note, I think it's a 10-month term on that note. I'd have to pull it to be sure, but I think it's 10 months, throughout the year, so that we don't get hit hard in the that first quarter of a fiscal year before our revenues have really started rolling in.
Then on page 4. Okay, and it's gonna be in our police department. It says here 1 animal control vacancy. We no longer have, are we getting an extra person?
So again, that is one of the things that we have included in the budget. Looking at, an additional animal control officer. So that would be a second one. And then also the full-time code enforcement, certified code enforcement officer, to be included in that amount.
I want to ask, did our animal control person, he's doing a great job because most people are calling and saying, thank you for coming out and picking up, deceased animals and what have you. But I just wanted to ask, did we ever get the equipment that was needed for him to?
We have ordered quite a bit of equipment, and as far as I know, the only thing that they are still in need of, and it, I think wasn't so much an issue of ordering it, is getting the person out there to actually build this, would be a holding area for some of these animals until the Humane Society has available space to take them. So there was, discussion of building again, up there, I guess kind of the public works yard, police department, to be able to house, X amount of dogs or whatever until space is available.
That's probably gonna be, but
And
I
we
guess
had
that's
at
just
one
one for
time
discussion.
a pen out there.
Where?
But I think out at the public works yard.
No,
So
ma'am.
much out there, so
No, ma'am.
congested now.
So
bad, ma'am.
there was damage done and it was never replaced, but I think what they were proposing and hoping to be able to build, and they were in contact, in communication with someone, but it hasn't been followed through, is my understanding. Just in
We-
discussions.
We're actually having some discussions on that this week.
Oh.
We are, because we are having a growing problem in our community with individuals not caring for their pets, and even worse, individuals dumping pets. And it's such a sad situation. And we are having some discussions, had quite a bit of discussion on this over the weekend, and we'll have some discussions this week.
Yeah, I understand.
One of the other things that I
I'll
want
come
to,
to you in just a minute, Alderman Fraser. Alderwoman Irving?
thank you, code enforcement. I think, we have, we're in need of one, but we have, and I thought about this, Mr. Mayor, which I was gonna have a discussion at our board meeting on the 13th. But, since we're saying it here, we're gonna need more than one person as code enforcement officer. And my reason for saying it, having experience just recently, that person is going to be out there with adjudicated properties. He has to learn about those kinds of properties, how to do the paperwork and what have you. So it's gonna be a learning process. But we also need to have a backup for that person as well. Because when we look at the amount of properties that we have, and we have over 300 properties, one person take care of 300 properties, that's a lot.
Don't forget that already included, we do have one part-time person that's.
But it's
assisting
still,
with this.
it's taxing for that part-time person as well.
We've only had one part-time person, and we are adding a full-time officer
Certified
position.
officer.
So that
And I'm
will be
okay
an
with that, but they have to learn it's a process. So one person is gonna take care of this the entire ward.
And we hope to have this person hired very soon. Well, it's actually an improvement over the part-time that we've had. We've only,
Now, our part-time is doing an excellent job. I'm not knocking the job. I'm just saying we need the manpower because it's a process. We get here, we get the calls from our constituents, okay? And you're trying to explain to them that it is a process. Paperwork has to be done, but it needs more than one person to take care of that. I think we need to look into increasing, like we've done, looking for a second animal control personnel. We need to do the same thing. That needs to be taken under consideration as well.
And it's one thing that I'll
Yes,
just
sir.
point out, we're dealing with a very small margin right now, that we may want to look maybe next fiscal year, trying to include a second person in that position rather than trying to do two this fiscal year. Just, from the financial standpoint, maybe something y'all want to consider holding off on.
And I want to say the same thing for Mr. Johnston's department. I mean, he's a great grant writer, but as you just said, he has a lot on him. Maybe we can look, we have 2 universities. We have junior college, we have Alcorn State University. Maybe we can hire an intern. Maybe that's something that needs to be taken under consideration as well. So that way he don't have all of this on him as well. Because you think about it, we're aging, you get ill, then who's gonna step up and take care of it then? So we need to have that backup plan and just have that person, as Rico did, that part-time person, that also could be done in his department as well. That's something the board needs to consider. Okay, and I hope, I'm just not calling words. I hope it's something that's going to be implemented and take strongly under consideration of the personnel that we have here. Also, the Harmony in the Park. Is that 8,000, Megan, that has been allocated for it?
Which page are you on?
I see 2 different things.
So we have the revenue and expense side of that.
Mhm.
Let's see.
It's 4,500. It's on page 1.
So the Harmony in a Park, that 4,500 is the revenue side of things. And then the expense side, as of right now, I mean, you know, I have a 0 there. So I would say it's probably going to balance itself out.
Okay.
With whatever we bring in revenues, we're paying out that amount in expenses. Just because that's kind of an uncertain thing. There is a line item because there have been expenses in the past, but moving forward, I was not provided any potential figures there beyond the revenue.
Well, we've done in the past, $2,000. And we do need to continue to support that as well. It's a great event.
So
It
I can update that to 6,500. That would be the 4,500 on the revenue side plus an additional 2,000 from the city.
Thank you. Page 9, public properties, the Angeletti House. I mean, Mayor, I know that Mr. Carter Burns is going to submit an application for repairs for the roof of the building, but that nothing has been allocated here in public properties. I mean, there's some things inside the building. Once you stabilize the roof, even if that organization who uses that building now wanted to go back in, they can. I mean, because of the physicality of the building. And so nothing has been allocated for Angeletti House. You know, in the past, we've had $10,000, you know, and looking at the outside of it, painting needs to be done.
Now, even though it has not been broken down specific to that property,
Mhm.
you'll see that there is a contingencies for any miscellaneous expenses in regards to public properties. And so, you know, certainly any work that y'all deemed needed to be done could be
Well,
worked into the budget with, you know, within that.
okay, because I guess I want to see it spelled out that we're going to allocate this amount to that, because we'll get in the budget year and said that we don't have that amount. So I would specifically like to see that amount allocated for that piece of property, because no attention has been done in about 4 years to that building.
Do you have a dollar amount that you would like for me to add here?
It's 20,000. Thank you. And I just want to ask too, I know we were looking at the Civic Center, and we said we would allocate a part of the bond money, we would allocate $350,000 for repairs to the Civic Center.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't know if I could answer, but how did we come with that figure? Because when I look at the upgrades, and I'm just asking, had all that been considered within the $350,000 that had been allocated?
I don't decide what y'all do with the money.
Well,
just
then
work
I
it
need
within
that
the budget.
question answered from someone. I mean, because
Oh,
I've gone to several events down there and no one asked,
Yeah.
about the weather going in. If it's in the wintertime, it's cold, it takes a while to heat up.
It's my understanding that there's been a consultant who has come in to help determine the
Okay.
renovations and upgrades that need to be done at the convention center and the civic center,
Yes.
to, to move those forward. That scope of work would
Right.
come from those consultants. So
Okay, so then
not,
we do
so
need
I,
to.
like I said,
Okay.
they give me the numbers and I work it into the budget.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's all that I have right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Fraser, I'm coming back to you.
Mr. Mayor, what I had to say, I'll let you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Any further discussion? Alderman Dillard?
The one thing, and just with the city clerk, I know we set aside some monies for equipment, and I just happened this weekend to have to be out and around in my ward, but I want to see that the public works equipment for the truck and the knuckle boom be included in this fiscal year. Mr. Mayor, it's we have an aging community in our little neighborhoods, and of course, even when the looks good guys came in, they didn't get into some of those tight areas. So I think we've done raises and stuff, but I think that equipment was on hold at the time, and I strongly want to advocate for that equipment with the knuckle boom. I actually saw the county come by, and it's really a very innovative little thing. One guy can operate it. He's kind of standing outside with a little operator, and it looks like the thing when you went into Shoney's to try to get the little Huggy Bear inside that case, and it picks it up and puts it in the back of the truck. So I just want to make sure that that's on there. And I think of all the things that we look at, that's a big plus to our community. Vidalia picks up a lot of the vegetated accumulations in their community. They even pick up what's called the white goods. I don't know that we're ready to do that yet. But I think that's something that can be appreciated. I get calls about it, and again, it's hard to try to persuade someone, a little elderly woman that has this tree limb that's fallen, and she's gotten it to the curb, but who do you find to get them after that? The other thing that I would like to ask of the city clerk is, if we can, before this evening, get a list of our employees. There's a list we have, kind of shows their position, how long they've been with the city. That'll help when we're considering, our increases in our compensation. And I would like to say, Mr. Mayor, that I agree with looking at our employees, because they are a valued resource that we have to maintain. And it doesn't just maintain itself. We have to be very proactive in maintaining our human resources. And I do agree with a $2 raise for our hourly police employees, but I think that we would be wise to consider for department heads and what's called salary exempt, to look at them in our March 15th. That served us well in the past, and I think it'll serve us well in the future, Mr. Mayor, in the sense that it will give us time to see if these ad valorem numbers are being realized. And when they are, then we can, with confidence, support the increases in these compensations to our department heads and the folks that we've looked at. I think it would be wise for us also to have departmental head reviews. We need to periodically meet with them and set what are our objectives coming coming year, whether it be in public works or whether it be in recreation and those sort of things. And with the performance review, then you can actually compensate them in the sense that they're taking on more responsibilities. That's going to be where I'm kind of looking at going forward. It's worked in the past, and it is a sound and prudent strategy, Mr. Mayor, that keeps us from getting ahead of our expenditures. I think that we're going to have a good year. It's just, and again, I'm not arguing against, and I'm hearing what the clerk's saying, but the starkness in those two numbers is still jaw dropping. And I think it can be reconciled. I just need to see the math that goes with it. I need to see the homework that goes with it. One other thing and I had spoken to the clerk about this previous, if we could break down our budget status reporting to us, where it would show, the subtotal for the insurance. And essentially what that is, Mr. Mayor, it shows us our wages and salaries, and then it breaks out all the other numbers. But at some point, we can see what it costs for our employees. It's not what you're paying them, because there's about 28% cost on top of that by the labor bill. And can we do that?
So our software will not generate that report that you're asking for.
Okay, well,
But after we spoke about it, I did go in and do some calculations, and our payroll expense runs about 48 to 49% of our overall expenses within the
Okay.
general fund.
So that's a good notice, but plus or minus 50%. The other thing that I wanted to look at is that are we receiving rent from the fire? I heard that earlier by one of the aldermen. Really?
We are.
Okay. So the property has been transferred into the cities.
Oh, that happened last
Yeah.
summer.
I didn't know if it
Last year.
had finalized.
It did. In
Okay,
August
so all
of
that's been
last summer.
finalized. And I think if I can get that employee list, and then the insurance, I noticed, and I just happened to look at the police department's insurance, the increases. Is there a way in here, and I just haven't found it, where we can see what our insurance cost is, and we can see what the increases, except for going down to each department? I usually pick on James because he's got a department of one, so I can see what all the increases are, from last year to this year.
Again, that is not something that the software can generate. I can try to put something together.
Never
for you,
mind.
but
I can
I-
speak to
happening by
that.
6 o'clock tonight, I'm not sure.
No,
I
I'm not
can
gonna get
speak
that.
to that. We, as you know, in our prior meeting, approved the renewal for our employee health insurance. And it was shown there that there would be a 7% increase in
7%.
premium on the reinsurance policy, and that equated to $17,000. And you'll see, just sprinkled through the various departments, a slight increase on employee insurance, where the city is absorbing that $17,000 increase. And this budget actually forecasts that when added to the savings of the last 2 fiscal years, we will actually exceed over $1 million in savings on our health insurance. And also, we are reserving for quite a bit more than we really have to. Being a self-insured plan, you want to make sure you reserve an ample amount. But, knock on wood, our self-insured plan for the last 2 years has performed very well. And then the reinsurance and other renewal information provided at the last meeting, I think you'll see in there that an amount of around 1.2 to 1.3 million is what has been running. We are budgeting for 1.4 to 1.5.
Yeah, it was like 1.48, I think.
Yeah, you want to
So,
still,
I mean, we built in a little bit of a buffer there. Just to
Buffer
cover
there.
any,
you should always underestimate your revenues and overestimate your
Exactly.
expenditure. On page 7, I did see something, and I'm not sure why it is. This is on the September the 2nd at the top of the page. This is our Snyder project, and it shows the year-to-date 388,000, and then it shows it amended column to the right at
So
155.
those were some booking errors that are going to be corrected.
Okay, so that's just a math error in that one. Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I will yield.
Alderwoman Hall.
Yes, I would just like to, again, thank Ms. McKenzie and Ms. Bell and their entire staff. This is a balanced budget that has been brought before us, and Ms. McKenzie went to each department head, seeking what their needs were in each one's department before all of these numbers were placed into this budget. I think this is an outstanding document. There'll be some adjustments, and we will still have a balanced budget moving forward. Like that, commend that.
Alderwoman Irving.
Yes, I just want to ask one other question about equipment for public works, the dump truck. Is
That's
that
it.
included?
Yes, Justin has continued to include those in his requests every year.
What about the loader? Did he,
Yes, all of that is in here.
just making sure? Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more.
Yes, Alderman
Can I
Frazier.
get the, if it's possible, can Can you get me this salary for New York Street? I mean, not for, what, yeah, next week. If you can get that.
I don't have Natchez water.
Mhm.
That would have to come from them.
Yeah, see if you can
So
get
I
it.
can, I
Yeah.
can try.
Yeah.
You asked me about the ADSA.
All right. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, one
Yes,
more
Alderman
to the
Dillon.
clerk, and I know we won't be able to have this by this afternoon, but there are different funds that have cash balances going forward.
Those will be included hopefully by this evening. I've been working on gathering those. They just haven't been put into this spreadsheet again. Trying to wait as late as I can to make sure it's as accurate as possible.
Well, as somebody who's just reading, and I'm exhausted from just reading the budget, I can't imagine being the person putting it together. So, and I've gone through two of them now, so,
And there's actually been like 8 or 9 of them, so y'all only got
Well,
2.
right, and we, really, you would have been advised to date it, but now I'm dating mine, so I know, because we got caught in that before.
Look, I've got them dated on the computer, different
Okay.
copies of them.
I would
Thank you, Mr.
say,
Mayor.
I'd like to make one more.
yes, Alderwoman Hall.
Earlier, someone mentioned about aging department within the city, and I would just like to remind everybody that it is illegal. And our attorney can validate that to discuss anyone's age in any department.
Thank you.
Ageism, I mean, it could be, I wasn't discriminating against anyone.
We now, before we go, I just want to say in summary, look forward to the public hearing later on today. We invite that input. I'm very excited that we have a budget that is balanced, but also accomplishes so much. And I'm also very excited that here, just a little over 2 years in, that we, my goodness, when you consider the new equipment, when you consider the improvements being made to our parks, to our buildings, and when you consider the new vehicles in the police department, the fire department, and other city departments, the fact that our building inspector no longer has to drive an old vehicle without air conditioning. We've made a lot of progress. Granted, we have more to make. I also want to throw out an idea, and this was mentioned by you a few minutes ago, Alderman Dillard, but I've had some real good discussions with my friend, Mayor of Vidalia, Buzz Craft. They are, and I might say efficiently, very, very efficiently, they are able to see to the collection of garbage and also tree limbs and other. They do all of this in-house, and they actually do it cheaper per household than we do. And understanding that these increases are hitting us and now we'll have to hit the homeowners, I would like to encourage us to look more into what the city of Vidalia is doing and see if bringing this collection in-house might be an option. If they're doing it and they're doing it well, twice a week, cheaper, it might be something to consider. But I'm saying when you break it down per household, they're doing it. Yes, Alderman Frazier.
I'm glad that you're on board with that. This has been a 2 or 3 year discussion already. We had already discussed about the limb truck. And I'm glad that we bringing this up again because it's gonna benefit everyone in the community. As you know, that we are in a climate change and we're getting all kinds of different weather. And this is something that the city needs. And as Alderman Dillon stated, we have people calling us all day about picking up old chairs and old things. So I think this is an idea that the city, that we need to look into.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Frazier, I appreciate you. Everyone, good discussion. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Davis, seconded by Alderwoman Hall. Any discussion on the motion? We'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you so much.